The approach of New Year's Eve promised to be a grand celebration for the extended family. For several days, the hostess had meticulously prepared for the arrival of her relatives, pouring her energy, heart, and considerable funds into creating a perfect banquet. However, the atmosphere shifted dramatically when, in front of everyone, the mother-in-law presented her daughter with a pair of exquisite diamond earrings, leaving her daughter-in-law with nothing but an old, worn apron. A heavy silence descended, broken only by the sounds of festive dishes being cleared from the table. Hello, dear listeners. I'm delighted to welcome you to my channel. I have a new, compelling story for you. Please enjoy. Margarita had always cherished holidays, particularly New Year's, a time of wonder, gifts, and warm family gatherings. But this year held something truly special. For the first time in their 5 years of marriage to Constantine, they had decided to host the New Year's Eve dinner at their own home, inviting his entire family. Are you quite sure you can manage? Constantine had asked with a hint of doubt when she proposed the idea. That's 15 people, not counting us. Of course I can, Margarita replied with a smile. It's not like I'm suggesting this every day. The idea had, in fact, stemmed from a deeper motivation. After moving into their own 3-bedroom apartment in a desirable neighborhood, purchased with a mortgage, Margarita wanted to demonstrate to her husband's family, especially his mother, Antonina Viktorovna, that they were financially stable. Antonina Viktorovna, from the very beginning of their relationship, had regarded her daughter-in-law with thinly veiled disdain. Well then, Constantine had conceded, we'll host the celebration at our place. And so, the whirlwind began. Margarita meticulously planned the menu, the table settings, and every minute detail, determined that everything should be absolutely flawless. She spared no expense on either the groceries or the home decorations. After all, this wasn't just any New Year's Eve. It was her chance to prove she was a worthy wife for Constantine. A week before the holiday, Margarita took time off work to dedicate herself fully to the preparations. Each day was scheduled down to the minute, encompassing grocery shopping, a thorough cleaning, and the preparation of dishes that could be made in advance. Constantine offered his assistance where he could, but the primary burden fell upon her. Perhaps we could order some of the dishes from a restaurant, he suggested, seeing how tirelessly she worked from dawn till dusk. No, Margarita firmly replied. Everything must be homemade. She knew her mother-in-law would undoubtedly inquire if the salads were store-bought, and she wanted to proudly declare that she had prepared everything herself. On New Year's Eve, Margarita rose at 6 in the morning. The final, most intensive day of preparation lay ahead. As she was taking a roasted meat dish out of the oven, the phone rang. Antonina Viktorovna, hello? Margarita answered cheerfully, propping the phone between her ear and shoulder as she transferred the hot dish to the counter. Rita, I wanted to clarify. When should we arrive? The mother-in-law's voice was as dry as ever. We're expecting everyone at 7 in the evening, Margarita replied. Very well. And one more thing. What are you preparing for the main course? Constantine has had a strong aversion to fish since childhood. I hope you recall this. Margarita closed her eyes for a brief second. Of course, she knew her husband's preferences better than anyone. Yes, Antonina Viktorovna. We will have roasted beef and chicken roulades. No fish. Good. See you this evening. The mother-in-law disconnected without waiting for a reply. By 7 in the evening, everything was ready. The festive table was laden with an abundance of food. There were various salads, cold appetizers, 2 types of main courses, and desserts. Margarita had even baked and expertly decorated gingerbread cookies, which looked as though they belonged in a glossy magazine. The apartment sparkled with cleanliness, the Christmas tree twinkled with lights, and a centerpiece of candles and evergreen branches graced the middle of the table. You've truly outdone yourself, Constantine said with genuine admiration, surveying the results of her labor. Margarita smiled. She calculated that she had spent nearly 40,000 rubles on the entire preparation. It was a substantial sum for their family, but she felt it was worth every penny. Precisely at 7, the guests began to arrive. Constantine's parents, Antonina Viktorovna and Pavel Borisovich, were the first. The mother-in-law surveyed the apartment with a critical eye, but remained silent. Then, the rest of the family trickled in. Konstantin's sister Svetlana with her husband and their two teenage children, his cousins with their wives, an aunt and uncle, and several other distant relatives. Dinner commenced in a convivial atmosphere. The guests praised the dishes. Konstantin glanced proudly at his wife, and Margarita felt the tension of the past few days slowly dissipate. Even her mother-in-law nodded approvingly several times as she sampled a salad. After the main courses, just before dessert, Antonina Viktorovna suddenly stood and announced with theatrical flair, "I have small gifts for my girls." Everyone fell silent. The mother-in-law produced two boxes from her handbag, one larger, the other quite small. "Sveta," she turned to her daughter, "this is for you. Happy New Year, my dear." Svetlana opened the small velvet box and gasped. "Mama, these are—" she began. "Yes," Antonina Viktorovna replied proudly. "Diamond earrings. I know you've dreamt of them for a long time." Svetlana immediately put on the gift. The earrings were indeed stunning, small but elegant, adorned with genuine diamonds that sparkled in the light of the festive garlands. Then the mother-in-law turned to Margarita. "For you, Rita." Margarita accepted the second box with a tremor of anticipation. It was significantly larger than the first, and for a moment, a flicker of hope ignited within Margarita that the gift would be equally impressive. Perhaps it was an expensive set of Konstantin rose, his expression indicating his desire to address the situation. However, upon meeting his mother's gaze, he hesitated and sat back down. This was the final straw. Margarita continued to clear the food in silence, while everyone else sat in stunned disbelief. Finally, Antonina Viktorovna broke the quiet. "And what is this childish tantrum? Such ingratitude." "Mama," Svetlana said softly, removing the earrings, "that was truly unfair." "Unfair? What was unfair?" the mother-in-law retorted, raising her eyebrows. "I gave what I deemed appropriate. I had promised you earrings long ago, and Rita, a practical item." "A worn practical item," someone from the relatives interjected. Suddenly, Pavel Borisovich, Konstantin's father, who was usually quiet and uninvolved in family matters, stood up. "Antonina," he said sternly, "you've crossed a line. Rita invested so much time and effort to make this evening pleasant for all of us, and you humiliated her." "I didn't humiliate anyone," Antonina Viktorovna protested indignantly. "My daughter and I have a special relationship." "And what is your relationship with your daughter-in-law?" Pavel Borisovich inquired. "For 5 years you've tormented her with your criticisms, and today you decided to show everyone her place in the family. Let her cook in an old apron while your daughter shines in diamonds." Antonina Viktorovna's face flushed. "Don't you dare speak to me in that tone." "I will," her husband replied firmly, "because I'm tired of your games. Rita." He turned to Margarita. "Please don't put anything away. I apologize on behalf of my wife." Margarita stopped, still holding a container of salad. She looked at her husband. "And what do you say, Kostya? Will you remain silent again?" All eyes turned to Konstantin. He slowly stood, walked over to his mother, and said quietly but firmly, "Mama, you must apologize to Rita. What you did is unforgivable." "I will not apologize," Antonina Viktorovna declared, tilting her chin upwards. "I did nothing wrong." "Then you'd better leave," Konstantin said, surprising everyone, including himself. "What?" The mother-in-law's eyes widened. "You're kicking your own mother out over some apron?" "Not over the apron." Konstantin shook his head. "But because you disrespect my wife and me. I've tolerated this for too long." Antonina Viktorovna cast an angry glance at everyone, grabbed her bag, and headed for the exit. At the door, she turned back. "You'll regret this, Kostya." As the door closed behind her, silence fell upon the room. Then, Svetlana approached Margarita and held out the box with the earrings. "Take them. They should have been yours." "No," Margarita shook her head. "I don't want these earrings. I want respect." "And you deserve it," Svetlana said, embracing her sister-in-law. "Forgive us all for allowing Mama to behave this way for so long." After the mother-in-law's departure, the atmosphere at the table gradually eased. Pavel Borisovich proposed a toast to Margarita's culinary talents, which everyone echoed, and the celebration continued, but with a newfound sincerity and warmth. Without Antonina Viktorovna's oppressive presence, everyone seemed to breathe more freely. Later that evening, after the guests had departed, Constantine helped Margarita clear the table. "Forgive me," he said quietly, "for not standing up for you sooner." "Why are you so afraid of your mother?" Margarita asked. Constantine sighed. "I'm not afraid. It's just that she's always been a strong personality, dominating everything. Father usually yielded, and I became accustomed to it. But today, I realized that's wrong. And now?" "Now," Constantine said firmly, "everything will be different. I won't let her treat you like this. Us." And he kept his word. In the following months, their relationship with Antonina Viktorovna remained strained. She attempted to reassert her former influence, but encountered her son's unwavering stance. Constantine insisted on respectful treatment for Margarita and was prepared to sever contact if this condition wasn't met. They received unexpected support from Pavel Borisovich, who, for the first time in many years of marriage, began to assert his opinions in arguments with his wife. This was a genuine shock to Antonina Viktorovna. "Don't you love me anymore?" she would ask her husband, tears in her eyes. "I do," Pavel Borisovich would reply, "but that doesn't mean I should always agree with you, especially when you're wrong." 6 months later, realizing her usual tactics were no longer effective, Antonina Viktorovna unexpectedly visited Margarita when Constantine was not at home. "May I come in?" she asked, her tone unusually hesitant. Margarita silently opened the door wider, allowing her mother-in-law to enter. "I—" Antonina Viktorovna began, visibly struggling to find the words. "I've come to apologize. What I did on New Year's Eve was cruel and unjust." Margarita looked at her with surprise. "Why did you do that?" she asked directly. "What did I do to you?" Antonina Viktorovna sank into a chair, suddenly appearing like an ordinary, tired woman rather than a formidable mother-in-law. "Nothing. You did nothing wrong. I was simply afraid of losing my son. I felt like you were taking him away from me, and I tried to assert my superiority. It was foolish and petty. I understand now," she paused, "why you've decided to apologize now. Because I realized I could truly lose not just my son, but also my husband. And," she faltered, "I've started seeing a psychologist. It was Pavel's idea. Can you imagine?" Margarita couldn't help but smile, picturing her usually quiet father-in-law suddenly showing such character. "And what did the psychologist tell you?" "A lot," Antonina Viktorovna sighed. "Mostly about how we parents try to control our children even when they're grown, and how that's wrong." She paused and added, "I'm not asking you to forgive me immediately, but I'd like to start anew, if you're willing." Margarita gazed at her mother-in-law for a long moment, weighing her words. "All right," she finally said, "let's try. But on one condition: no more manipulation or humiliation. We all deserve respect. You and me." Antonina Viktorovna nodded. "I promise." This marked a turning point in their relationship. Of course, not everything changed overnight. There were setbacks and relapses into old grievances. But Antonina Viktorovna genuinely tried to change, and Margarita and Constantine gave her that chance. 2 years later, for another New Year's Eve, the entire family gathered again at Constantine and Margarita's home. This time, they prepared the meal together. Antonina Viktorovna offered to help her daughter-in-law, and when it was time for gifts, the mother-in-law presented Margarita with a small box. Inside were elegant silver earrings with amethysts. "They're not as expensive as those diamond ones," Antonina Viktorovna said, "but I chose them with love, and I thought the amethyst would complement your eyes." Margarita hugged her mother-in-law, tears welling up. "They're beautiful. Thank you." That evening, as the guests departed, Constantine embraced his wife and whispered, "You managed to do the impossible. You tamed my mother." "Not me." Margarita shook her head. "We all did it together. And you know what I realized? Sometimes you just have to stop enduring and clearly set your boundaries, even if it's scary." "Did you throw away that apron?" Constantine suddenly asked. Margarita laughed. "No, believe it or not, it's hanging in the pantry. I decided that one day I'll tell this story to our children, so they'll know that any situation can be changed if you gather the courage and don't stay silent when you're being humiliated." They stood by the window, looking out at the festive city, contemplating how one unpleasant incident and a moment of courage could change an entire life, and that a true family isn't defined by the absence of conflict, but by the ability to overcome it while maintaining mutual respect. And the worn apron remained in the pantry, a reminder of a past they had all managed to outgrow together.